I've definitely seen a lot, especially with kids with trauma issues, anger, whether it's developmental issues, things like that. So as a kid, that was really hard to understand. But once I got older, it opened my eyes to a completely different world.
Welcome to Finding Common Ground, the Mother Load with Heather and Rachel.
Hello.
Today, we get to talk to Steve's daughter and have this backstage pass kind of into your family's life. And I love that you were able to come on and do this special episode with me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, you get to sit in Dad's chair in a
I know.
studio. You're
Feels very
ready.
different. I'm ready
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. There's, what would you say when you think, what is the one thing that you and your dad share the most? Is there a quality or something that,
I would say compassion. He is the most selfless man I have ever met in my entire life. And I got to grow up and watch that every single day, in and out, him always doing something for somebody else. And I now use that every day in everything I do.
you just see the world a little different when you grow up
Absolutely.
with somebody who just radiates that? He really does. But one of the things about your dad that really speaks to me is his drive. Like, he does not take no for an answer. If there's something someone needs and there's a roadblock, that is not going to stop him. And I would think that that's another great quality to grow up around.
Absolutely. He never backs down. He loves a good fight. No matter if he fails the first time, he'll keep on going.
Yeah. So when you were young, you had a blended family. So you were the baby, if I'm
Yes.
remembering
Yes.
correctly. Okay. So that that in itself is a big deal, blending families. I've done that. That's hard. It's not always
Yes.
easy, but you kind of find your way. But you were the baby.
I was the baby. Yes.
Yeah. Then what happened?
So I was always used to the loud, the chaos, all of us siblings going back and forth. I was kind of the middle connector. I have two brothers from my mom's side and then a brother and two sisters from my dad's. So I was kind of the connector of everything. And then, of course, everyone got older, grew up, went their own ways, started careers, families, and all of that. And the house was quiet for about 3 days. I think I was about 8 when my dad started foster care. And at first it was a little strange, kind of flipping roles. Now I'm not the baby anymore. Now I'm the big sister. And look at all these kids. We had a big house. It might as well be filled. And I absolutely loved it. Took a little bit of getting used to, but I loved it.
That's good. I mean, I think it's okay to be a little bit honest though too. Like it's got to be a lot because the kids coming in, like when our audience is thinking about this, I mean, your parents have fostered almost 200 children. So there has been a lot of different people in and out. And some of them have stayed quite a long
Yes.
time, have been adopted into the family, but there has to be times that you can think back on that it didn't feel like the perfect arrangement for a girl growing up. Right? Like, you want to have your own space, you want to have your own place, you want mom and dad's attention. Did you ever feel any of that kind of angst about it?
I think so. There was a couple times, obviously, I was a younger girl, so I had a little bit of an attitude. I was very, very active in school sports and things like that. And with my parents being so busy, my mom working all the time, my dad obviously now taking care of younger kids, I kind of felt like I got the back seat on that. And I think once I got older, I understood why. And that anger turned into love. Like, I'm so grateful I got two little brothers out of it. I've gotten family that isn't family out of it. I've definitely seen a lot, especially with kids with trauma issues, anger, whether it's developmental issues, things like that. So as a kid, that was really hard to understand. But once I got older, it opened my eyes to a completely different world.
Right. And some things have to seem just easier.
Yes.
Know what you've been able to do with things that are really hard. I mean, some of the kids coming into your home have pretty sad stories, I
Yes.
mean, chaotic, dysfunctional things that have happened. And Do any of those stories stand out to you? Because I would think that that could really disrupt the rhythm. But what one foster family said that was on the Benoits, they said it's kind of nice because the other children balance that out. You know, the person comes in and they're ready to maybe make it more chaotic, more loud because they're angry and they don't know how to
Absolutely.
cope with it. But then there's this like stabilizing force that might not happen if you didn't have like a whole army of children there, right? Like, but they can follow your lead. So, I mean, did you ever have that kind of experience?
Absolutely. So we had this one teenage girl who was placed with us. I think I might have been 10. And there was an event at the school that night. It was a Think Pink volleyball game for people with breast cancer. So I was there with my mom and I believe Andral, who's my adopted little brother. And my mom just randomly left in the middle. She's like, "Stay with your aunt. I gotta go." And I came home, and one of the kids had a knife pulled on my dad. So that was scary. I didn't know until obviously after the event was over. But my dad is a great person to when things are like somebody's upset. He talked her right down, and she calmed down and said why she was upset. But I think a lot of these kids have a really hard time being comfortable with doing that because they're kind of just thrown into these homes and bounced around and nobody really understands what they're going through except them. So yes,
He does have that gift, like where
he really
people can
does.
feel his heart. They know that what his intent that their his intentions are good. And I
Absolutely.
think that that serves him well. But that has to be scary too because maybe the child could act out, but the people connected to the child, there's a reason they were placed in foster care. Has that
Absolutely.
ever been part of the equation for you guys? Or see, I guess I don't know how it's set up. I don't know if the biological parents know what the address is, where their kids are. Like, is it different for
So things have changed kind of over the years. When they first started, there was a couple families where Christmas Day, one of the moms, it wasn't like a super insane situation why she got her son taken away. So my dad invited her over for Christmas. And most of the time they do visitations at the actual office, but my dad kind of broke that pattern with some of them. Other times it has been kind of an issue, them knowing the address. They're mad that they don't have their kids, and sometimes they were taken away for awful reasons, and they take that out on the foster care parents, and it's very scary.
it has to be. I remember not the same, but a similar feeling when I worked at the nursing home. And we had these people, just for context for the audience, Rochester is one of the highest gun violence areas in our country.
Right.
Per capita, we have more shootings than like Chicago.
Wow.
So I didn't realize when I started working at this facility, this 500-bed facility that had a rehab attached to it, that a lot of the people who were rehabbing from injuries were people who had been shot.
Wow.
Like it was just this heavy feeling. So you meet these people and you think, what's stopping the person who shot them from
Right, from
coming
coming here.
here?
It's
And
very
so
scary.
it started making me think a little bit more. Like if they were really acting up about where their bed was, I'd start thinking maybe they don't want to be near the window.
Right.
Maybe they don't want us to take a picture of them at the activity because they don't want that posted online. They don't want people to know where they are. And it's just, I feel like there's a parallel there. And that's a hard way to live, kind of hiding part of your life. Me and you had talked earlier about how a lot of the foster kids don't want anyone to know they're in foster care.
No, not at all. I think a lot of them are very embarrassed. They spent their lives so scared, taken out of a place where they were supposed to be loved. And unfortunately, some foster homes aren't great. However, my dad and my mom have done phenomenal here. There's still kids who had aged out of the system that come over for holidays and people who always reach back out, and that has been amazing. When people ask me how many siblings I have to count in my head because it's just family is family.
And I think some of the best family, like some of the ones you really are closest with, aren't always blood related because you're like, I don't know, in the trenches with them. Like they're going through something hard, you're rallying beside them. That's a different kind of bond that I don't know if everybody gets. If the child finds that sense of calm and security somewhere, that you're always going to have that positive vibe to you, that tone that they like want to come back. The fact
Absolutely.
that's so cool. Like I would think a lot of foster kids never want to go back to their
I know
foster
because you
home.
hear so many horror stories, but I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this side of it, being the, biological daughter on the side of this and seeing into foster care and how it is and being able to develop relationships and bonds with all of these different kids, whether they're older than me, younger than me. It has been such an amazing experience.
It's really cool. So you have an associate's you have with business and marketing.
Yes.
And now you have taken some time off from work because of a shoulder injury, which is horrible. But now you're
Unfortunately.
spending more time back at mom and dad's. And how is it feels like that kind of has like pushed you maybe to rethink like, what do I want to do in the next few years? What do I want to explore? Who do I want to be when I grow up? I mean, where are you on that kind of part of your journey?
Obviously I have to wait until I'm fully recovered, but it has got me thinking very differently on what I want to do for my forever career. There was a little boy here a couple years ago. His name was Nazir, and I fell absolutely in love with him. He was 3 when he came, and he just became my little best friend. He lit up my entire world. Unfortunately, the system did not treat him very well, and to this day, I wish that I still had a relationship with him. I would have adopted him in 30 seconds if somebody asked me to. So I think about him and how that affected me a lot. And that makes me want to help other kids who are in the system that the system just breaks them, destroys them. Some of these people try to over medicate because they're kids and kids are hyper, especially kids with trauma. They don't know how to react to certain situations, and I want to kind of change that into the right direction. So I definitely am teeter-tottering with going back to school to work with children like that.
Oh, if we can take just a minute, your dad has definitely hinted at, teased at that there are like some real serious issues with foster care. And I know that soon the last adoption will be happening, that they're planning, at least right now. I never know
Yes,
with your mom and dad.
I know.
They're-
Me either, honestly.
but I feel like there's this moment where we can be more honest with the audience because as somebody who's never been involved with that system, except in a professional capacity, like I've never personally been engaged in that system, I just wonder what, like, were headlines in the news just, I think it was yesterday or the day before in my area saying that Monroe County had this extremely high rate of CPS investigations. So Child Protective was being called a lot, and the investigations did not take a few minutes. They would stretch on and on and on. So there were a couple like areas that people were really upset about. Number one, if there's something horrible going on, it seems like you need to move more quickly. Also, if so many of the cases are unsubstantiated, there has to be a way to like weed out the ones that are just, retaliation or not valid, not accurate. Because sometimes people get it wrong, right? They think they're calling for the right reason, but it's not really an issue of abuse. That's pretty systemic because all these people get piled into the system and then the caseworkers are so overworked that nothing gets done. But guys are on the other side of it. Like I feel like with foster care, they're already removed. They're already in that system. What kind of breakdowns eh, are you comfortable discussing?
I'm comfortable discussing it all. I've seen it all, especially being here. So, unfortunately, from the day we started foster care, the system is so broken. They let some parents be foster parents that they absolutely should not. And they really do fail these kids. Like you put it a very good way. The caseworkers get so overloaded that they're not able to do their jobs properly. So for example, caseworkers are designated to a child and they are supposed to do whether it's biweekly or monthly check-ins. I couldn't tell you the last time a caseworker was here for my little brother who's still technically in the system. And that's just not okay because God forbid somebody were in a bad situation in a different household. It's scary. And I feel like so much of that just absolutely has to change.
And how with the child? ask for help. I just think they're in such a horrible situation. Maybe, their biological family, they know they really can't go back there, but now they're placed in this other home. Like, who do you tell that to? Like, are they
Right.
gonna believe you? There has to be huge trust issues.
There's definitely very big trust issues. We had a little boy here who refused to talk because he was so scared. He would say yes and no, whether it was you, are you hungry, or things like that, but he would not talk about anything else. I think these kids just shut down. I mean, they didn't ask for any of this, and now they're put in this situation where they don't know who to trust. Am I going to be loved, taken care of? So it takes a while to break that wall down, but once it's broken down and this child is comfortable talking to you, it is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Absolutely. And then your mom and dad like up the ante again, and they didn't just take in the kids that could communicate. They started taking in children that were really pretty profoundly impacted by different disabilities. Um, wow. Like, do you know what I mean? Because that trauma
Absolutely.
part is hard enough, but then you bring in this other dynamic. And I know that's driven by your brother having autism. I know your dad just feels like if I
Yes.
can figure it out for him, then I owe it to these other kids that are getting bounced around from place to place where people don't really know how to help them or support them. He's shared some of the stories with our audience already, but do you have any that stand out to you where he really made a difference? He changed the way their condition was being treated or medicated, or he found a new program or some other opportunity that might not have happened otherwise.
Absolutely. So, like you said, my parents have both had experience with my older brother, Dustin. But once you brought in the foster kids who had developmental issues, Michael stands out to me. He's 17. He still currently lives with us. He is the funniest little boy in the entire world. When he first came to us, I believe he was 7 years old, and he barely talked. He didn't do really anything, and he was angry. He would bang his head against things and scratch, and that was a huge thing, was the scratching of the arms. And my dad fought to the nail with the agency to make sure that, we have to change something. He needs this kind of therapy. We need to change this medication. And now here we are all these years later. He talks in full sentences. He tells you when he's upset. It's just amazing. He taught himself how to speak so many different languages through DVDs. And this went from not talking at all. And now he's just so happy. And I think it's a combination of the different treatments as well as finally feeling safe and comfortable somewhere.
That's the best possible medicine, right?
I think so as well.
Yeah, to be somewhere where you do feel safe and you feel valued.
Of
I
course.
mean, I can't imagine a system. I don't even know how we change it, if I'm being honest, because obviously there are situations we got to take kids out of. We can't fix
100%.
it every time. So, any ideas? I know this is a very high level question, but knowing what you know.
Honestly, I think that they should just start from square one, break the entire system down and start from square one, because the number one priority should be the safety of children.
Hmm.
They didn't ask to be in these situations, and now they are. How can we help them? Whether it's eventually making sure that the parents are getting help and eventually they can reunify them with them, or is this child not going to be able to go home, and can they get adopted? And as well as giving them all of the resources they need, whether it's any medications, therapies, making sure they're in a healthy home. And I feel like that's kind of overlooked, and that's the biggest part of it, and it's often overlooked because, like you said, these caseworkers, they just have loads and loads of work to do and they can't get it done. I think more people need to work in the system, and they have to start from square one.
And the interesting thing is, when you look at the way the statutes are written, the regulations, the policies that we're supposed to be following, kids are not supposed to be in foster care forever.
No, it's
That
supposed
is
to be
just,
11 months is, I think, the max.
you just talked about Michael being there for 10 years.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it just shows me that there is some kind of breakdown. This is gonna, I don't know how this will land, if this is like an evil description of agencies, but I feel like there must be some kind of benefit to them to keep kids in the system. This is like a thing in nursing homes. They'd say, they're not letting me get discharged because they want my Medicaid money. Like they want,
Right.
there's a reason I can't get back into the community. Do you think there's an element of that? Like people are getting their paycheck based on this feedback loop? I know
I think
it's
so. Because
okay.
when a child is technically a ward of the county's now getting paid for that child. And obviously they're paying out whoever works for the agency or things like that. So I feel like honestly the longer you keep them in, the more money you're getting out of these kids. And if you send it back home, there goes that money. You're not getting paid
Right.
for that kid anymore. Or if they get adopted, again, that money's gone. So unfortunately, I do think it's not only a statewide issue, I think it's a complete nationwide issue.
And I don't think it's the caseworkers themselves
No,
intentionally.
definitely. I think it's very higher up than that.
Yeah, I think it's just the way the system is set up. To
Yeah,
sustain itself, it's like on the backs of the kids. Like they're carrying
absolutely.
a system. And that's how it is with a lot of disability related things. Like they turn us into the expressions like a cash cow or something. That's how they like
Right.
make money. It looks like they're being generous, but really the outcomes for the children are not
Are
generous.
awful, awful. We've seen all of it, whether it's good or bad. We've seen kids completely fly off the radar and struggle with it in their teen years. My little brothers will probably kill me for saying this, but they've definitely dealt, especially in the teenage years. They still do have that trauma and anger towards the system that they just want to get it out. And it was never fair to them. They just did not ask for this life. And obviously they're loved and cared for here, but it's okay for them to still be a little bit angry at how the system treated them.
And as a mental health person, I can say it is really hard to walk that line with a child and know how you help them make peace with it without repeating it. If we make it
Absolutely.
seem like not a big deal, kids fall right back into that loop and you see it just happening generation after generation. It's just like pattern that's hard to break. But I do think some of the counselors have forgotten the intention of their role.
I fully
And
agree
I'm
with that.
pausing because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. And I don't even think people know when it's happening to them. You're just like sucked into this red tape maze of paperwork
Hmm.
and you're checking the boxes, but you
And that's what it is.
forgot.
It's checking the
Yeah.
boxes instead of,
Mhm.
I'm here to help this kid figure this out. But it's just checking the boxes and making your paperwork pile go lower. And that's not how it should be.
One thing that stands out to me, and Steve talked about this on the show, was the one young man who was pretty profoundly affected, but there was no plan for him when when he was going to age out of the system.
No.
Now, I think anybody in foster care who hits that age out phase is going to struggle. They have never had that consistency, right? And even if they had it at your home, it's still like not the same.
Right. It's different now, especially if, adoption isn't that these kids are just thrown out into the world. Like, yes, they could have learned skills and things like that at the foster homes that they were at, but they are given nothing. If they don't have a job, then they just struggle. And a lot of these kids just cycle right back into where they were because there's no system implemented to make sure they'll be okay once they age out. And it's scary for them. I cannot imagine being in that position.
Gonna say, okay, I'm 18 or I'm 21 and I'm just starting to know what to do with my life. And now I'm completely on my own.
Right.
Any of
With
the
no help
ties
or
I've
guidance.
had, yeah, there's no like carryover piece where they're like making sure they're ready. There has to be an astoundingly high homelessness rate
Oh,
for
absolutely.
people.
I've
Yeah.
known some of them who were in different care homes in the area, and I had gone to school with them or seen them in the town, and they don't have anywhere to go. They're just bouncing off their friends' couches, and that's not okay. Again, the goal is to protect. That doesn't end when they turn 18.
It almost feels like there has to be, I'm just taking something from the disability world. Obviously, this would work with everybody in this situation, but in Arizona, when I visited, they had a transition academy. For 2 years, people lived in these apartments and they trial all the different kinds of supports that they might need, and they're supported. They help them connect with whatever education piece they need. If there's a career that they're working towards, maybe they help them get that entry level job, get them in the door, teach them how to access the transportation they need, because there are so many moving parts. You could be a great
Absolutely.
person, have high aspirations, but if you don't know how to get from point A to point B because you've never seen anybody do it,
Then you're
that's
stuck.
it's a gap that you can't bridge because you don't know who you go to and what you
Right.
ask. Like if you don't know, you don't know, right? And that really hits me that we spend so much money
Yeah.
in this system, but we're not really spending it on the things to improve lives.
I think that's one of the biggest problems. Like you said, a system like that where it's kind of a bridge program, once they do age out, if there was an opportunity to help with school or jobs, that would be amazing instead of just putting these kids right back from where they started of I don't know where to go in the world and I don't know where I belong.
Yeah, think about the VA when a veteran comes home
Right.
from a tour of duty and they need a new mission. They're not, across the sea anymore. They're like
Right.
back in their hometown. And what do they do then? And they have reintegration programs for them to help them
Absolutely.
get back into a life that they can be proud of too. I don't want anyone to fall back into an old pattern,
No.
like
And
that
that's
just
it's the saddest thing to see.
they turn into the person they never wanted to be because they don't really know how to do it different.
Right.
But I do think that being in a home like yours has positively impacted a lot of this population. I mean, the people that were coming in and out, I'm sure there are some that it didn't work out, but I think a majority of them, you gave them that stability and it sounds like they still visit.
Yes,
That's
yes. They've
that has to feel good.
Yes, my parents have definitely built relationships with these kids that it's always been an open door policy here. It doesn't matter if you age out, if you need help, call, if you need somewhere to stay, we have an extra bed. It's always been like that. Like I said before, we have some kids come home for the holidays that were never, adopted, but they're still family and it's just
Mhm,
amazing. We had a kid here a couple years ago. His name was Jason. I think my dad told you about him.
mhm.
He and my dad always talked. All of us siblings always talked after he, moved on, started his life. He actually had a daughter. Unfortunately, he did pass away in a motorcycle accident. But like I said, it's always been an open door policy for anyone, and I think that more foster parents need to be like that to know that these kids can feel safe and have a home to call home.
And your dad had these boxes. So anybody who came into your home, he would collect the report cards and the pictures and the
Yes.
yearbooks because sometimes kids get shuffled around and
And lose
he
everything.
knew they might come back and they might want their stuff and I'm going to keep it. You're going to
Yes.
cry. I mean, that's just such a beautiful
And
thing.
he does. You should see our garage. There are still so many files and boxes, when he's in contact with whether it's parents or the children themselves, we have stuff. And I think that's amazing. Like you said, a lot of these kids, they get shuffled around so much, they lose everything. Imagine if there was a family picture in there from their biological family that was so close to them, or even something as small as a stuffed animal. These are the things that make this stable, for these kids. And it's kind of a
Mhm.
piece of home. And I think it's absolutely amazing that my dad saves all of these things.
I know. We have just a few minutes left. So let's dig into Steve. He is the best guy, but when we're on the air, our audience knows he's usually in listening mode. He does interject. He has great ideas. Well, who is he behind the scenes? Like, how would you describe him to somebody who only knows like that public appearance, Steve?
Honestly, he, I'm so surprised that he's a listener on the air. He is such a talker. If you talk to him about, if you say one word, he'll have an entire story to go off of that. And if we go anywhere in public, he knows everybody. And it's always him, talking about what he's doing to advocate and, all of these different things that he's implementing to try to fix, whether it's a broken system or help people with developmental issues. It's absolutely a beautiful thing to see, and he ties it into everything that he does, including parenting all of us. He's taught us so many amazing values that I don't think we would have learned elsewhere. And it's definitely developed me into who I am today and has brought me, I feel like I succeeded a lot more quicker than I should have, than more people my age.
Yeah, I feel like my kids have like old souls. I don't know
Yes.
how to explain it anyway else, but all the different people I have supported, some of them have been very complex, different machines and things like equipment that
Yes.
they need. And my kids don't even see it.
No,
Like they don't even notice when somebody has a trach because they've seen so many
seen all
people
of
with a
it.
trach. So that is a gift just to be able to see people. I have one of my friends who says, I just love that you see me and not my wheels. Like he said,
Yes.
everybody notices my chair before they notice me. And my kids look right at people. They're looking right into
And
their
that's
eyes because
exactly
they're a
how it should
person.
be.
Hmm.
Right. We're all human inside and out, and everybody should just be treated with love, compassion, and whatever they need. It shouldn't be. I like what you said, sees you for you instead of the wheels. It's not something you should look at right away.
No. So when you think about next steps for you personally, I mean, we kind of hinted at maybe you go back to school, maybe you do something in this field. But for me, my dad was such an important influence for me. He was a school psychologist, and I looked up to him so much growing up. Like I'm so happy that you have your dad with you right now. My dad ended up developing Parkinson's at a really early age, and we
I'm so
lost him
sorry.
5 years ago. Yeah, and it's I bring it up because it's such a gift to have somebody with that kind of energy and compassion and heart,
Definitely.
and it shapes us. But sometimes I find myself like second guessing myself too. Like, would my dad have done that? Or
I do
would he
that
be proud of
all
that?
of the
Like,
time.
when I'm not like that perfect little angel, I think
Yep. It's
maybe,
like it's like
maybe that would have, yeah. What would dad say about that? I know.
No, I definitely, with everything I do, I think I question, like, would my dad be okay with this? And, for my future, I plan on eventually down the road having obviously children of my own. I do plan to adopt out of the system as well. I think that's a very, very important piece. It's built my family personally, and I plan to, do that as well.
And I bet a lot of people your age wouldn't say that. I cannot
I don't
think
think so.
of, oh my
I don't
gosh,
think so.
I'm
I have
talking.
friends my age and they think I'm crazy, but it's very different growing up like this. And it's a lot harder for people that don't really understand it to see.
Yeah, when you meet somebody and they have 11 siblings,
Right.
having three
It's not
kids
really a
of their
normal
own,
thing.
yeah, but they just don't think anything of it, right?
No,
Like
but
three
that's my
kids, four
normal.
kids, right?
Right.
So I'm glad that you can have that perspective because there's so many young people that don't even want to have kids.
No,
They're like
I'm
just so
excited.
hmm.
When I lived at my other house, it was obviously I have dogs, but it was so quiet. I'm like, this doesn't feel normal to me. I
Right.
need I need noise. I need something. I need somebody running around at the TV on blast. And that is my feeling of home. It's always been a safe space here, and I plan to carry that on when I have children.
That's good. You get to carry the torch on.
Yes,
So
that's the plan.
yeah, and I think that's why your dad wanted you to come on the show. We love bringing in guests. He has the best ideas for shows. He really finds really unique things and like, let's talk about this, let's have this person on. And as parents who have children with disabilities, we just have this horrible thing that replays in our mind. What if we, get hit by the bus? What if we don't wake up
Yes.
tomorrow? Who's going to carry this on for us? Who's going to do this? So I could see you doing the advocacy part easily. I think you'll be back on the podcast. Like those
I
things
think so. I think
are
so.
a no brainer. But what about Dustin? If you don't mind,
No,
as we close up
absolutely.
the show, because I have an adult sister with autism and she lives with my mom. And I just know that when my mom is not here or can't provide in that way, that I kind of have a fifth kid, right? And not in a
Absolutely.
mean way. She has tremendous skills. And I know Dustin has, his own set of skills too, but Just how does that hit as a sister talking to another sister?
As a sister, it's definitely, been a thought. When he was younger, he didn't really have his communication skills that he has now, but now he's publicly speaking. He
Mhm.
takes care of himself, things like that. He obviously can't, like, do things like cook on a stove or things like that. Obviously, when something happens, we've definitely have the conversation. I would absolutely let him live with me if something happened. I know both of my other sisters have talked about it as well, if something happened to our parents. And it is scary to think about a little bit because where am I going to be at that point in my life? Am I going to be married with kids, or what state am I going to live in? But I would 1,000% do it without any hesitation.
That feels good to hear you say that as a mom. I always just wonder, like my oldest, I'm like, it's a lot to ask.
It definitely is. It was never, that's what I think, influenced us the most, is it was never asked for us or expected, who's going to take, Dustin. It was just, we all want to, all hands in, we will figure it out.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really big part of it. It definitely is. It would add on, a lot of pressure and definitely a different lifestyle, but it's definitely something I've seen and grown up with my entire life.
Mhm. And you know what would happen if you didn't step up.
Right.
You know what the alternative is. So this is what I hope and pray for. I hope that Steve just keeps pushing. Your dad has
He
so
will.
many he has so many amazing ideas. I hope that that kind of energy creates housing that's supportive.
I
When you think
really
about
do as well.
it's like older people, you could have assisted living, you could have home care, you could have a nursing home. We have like all these, a whole continuum to serve them. And then there's people with disabilities. Either you're in a group home or you're at
Right.
home.
And I
There's
think,
not a whole lot of in between.
there isn't. And I think a lot of the group homes, aren't ideal. I mean, it's just a bunch of people with disabilities and probably not enough workers. And I just wish that they would implement systems like they do, with older people who need help. I think that needs to be a very, very big push.
Yeah. And maybe in the next 10 years, that's what we see because it usually takes an idea a while to grow, but the problems have just become so big. So we need people like your dad in the world, and we need the people like you who are the next in line, the people coming up behind
Absolutely.
us to keep this stuff going because 50 years ago, the parents that closed Willowbrook felt like they had solved a serious problem.
Right.
And now we realize the problem kind of still exists because it's the mindset. We have
It
little
is.
mini institutions rather than a big one, right? That we
Right.
can knock on the door. So thank you for joining me
Absolutely.
today for this conversation. I can see us doing it again. And to our audience, if you liked the Motherload, a little spin-off from our regular show, please let us know because what we're trying to do is offer content that really matches what everybody is living and breathing in their own backyard, right? Because our realities might be different, but we have these like little threads that connect us all. And it was so nice to get to know you better, Rachel. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Till next time.
Continue the conversation by joining our Facebook group. If you're a fan of the show, please join our supporters club. Subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your favorite listening app, but most of all, share it with your friends. Just one more click or comment can make a huge difference and help us to continue finding common ground.